Senator Tom Cotton is the co-sponsor of that bill. Senator, good to have you with us today. Tell us what you're advocating for here, Senator.
Yeah, Martha, I think it's important that your viewers understand exactly how abhorrent the Palestinian Authority's practices are here. The Palestinian Authority uses its funds to pay people to kill or maim Jews, or to pay their families if they're killed in those attacks. We banned this several years. We banned U.S. financial support for the PA for this practice several years ago in a law called the Taylor Force Act, named after an American veteran who was killed by one of these terrorists. Yet the PA has continued to do it. So today, or yesterday, we've introduced a bill that would sanction these PA officials for engaging in this kind of pay-for-slay practice. I think it's an important reminder that Palestinian Authority officials are not somehow moderate. They don't want to live in peace with Israel. They're just rivals for authority with Hamas inside Palestinian-controlled territories. And yet you had Kamala Harris come out yesterday and put more pressure on Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu than she does on the Palestinian Authority or Hamas, who's guilty of committing the atrocities on October 7th that led to this war in the first place.
Let's hear a bit of that. This is Vice President Harris on the hostage deal yesterday.
Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. Let's bring the hostages home, and let's provide much-needed relief to the Palestinian people. And ultimately, I remain committed to a path forward that can lead to a two-state solution.
There's mixed reviews about her comments and thoughts about that meeting. How did you see it?
Well, those remarks are exactly what you would expect from a San Francisco liberal like Kamala Harris. She cited civilian casualties, starvation, displacement inside of Gaza. No doubt those are things that are all happening. They're happening solely because of Hamas's brutal tactics that puts its own power and its own zeal to kill Jews above the well-being of its own people. If Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had simply backed Israel from the beginning, this war would probably already be over, with Hamas destroyed and Israel secured on its southern flank. But because you see Kamala Harris, like a San Francisco liberal, blaming America first, putting more pressure on Israel than she does on Hamas, all that does is embolden Hamas to make stiffer demands, to say that they want to keep getting more and more from Israel in return for illusory promises about returning hostages or conducting a ceasefire. If Kamala Harris would simply back Israel the way the American people want her to, then this war would be over faster. And I think it's a glimpse, too, of what you're going to see in the days ahead. Kamala Harris needs to be explaining exactly what she would do as president on the war in Gaza or Ukraine or standing up to China. She's never really done that. In 2019, during her failed campaign for president, it was all about economic and domestic policy. And for the last 3.5 years, she simply parroted Joe Biden's lines. But now she wants the big job on her own. She needs to come out. She needs to do press availabilities and interviews and explain exactly what she would do as the commander-in-chief.
So President Trump meets with Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. What do you hope is accomplished there? And do you think that Benjamin Netanyahu made any progress with the American people in that speech yesterday?
Well, I think the Prime Minister's speech to Congress was a home run. I don't see how anyone could disagree with anything he said. You know, for instance, that this is not a clash of civilization. It's a clash between civilization and barbarism. I suspect that President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu will reflect on the great success they had. You saw during the Trump era what happens when America embraces Israel tightly. We didn't have war. We had peace agreements between Israel and many of its Arab nations. We also saw Iran pulling in its horns by the end of the Trump administration because President Trump stood up to Iran as opposed to appease them the way Kamala Harris would and Joe Biden has. So I think Prime Minister Netanyahu appropriately was nonpartisan. He thanked President Biden for some of the things he's done. I wish he had done those things a lot faster in terms of providing weapons and all the weapons Israel needs. He reflected on the successes of the Trump administration. What I know is that America will be safer with President Trump back in the White House. We'll be even more at risk with Kamala Harris as president than we have been under the last 3.5 years with Joe Biden as president.
So much has happened in the last week. We thank you for coming on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you both.